I see things slightly in a different way, and that's the only reason why I'm piping up at this point, because there's so much going on. But I don't see Google trying to make themselves the king of search in the next 10 years. I see them trying to make themselves the king of identity. And I think when you look at Facebook and you look at, which is kind of their big competitor, and even Microsoft at this point, they're all making really strong investments to control your online identity, because there is no firm place where you can go and say, hi, I'm Ann O'Brien, these are my connections here, this is my information, and this is what data I want to share and what data I don't want to share, and this is my travel history, and this is what I've booked online and what I prefer to book in person, or these are my preferences. We see Facebook with the creation of timelines, in addition with their building of almost in Facebook website experiences with the app conglomeration, the mashups with Spotify and with the Wall Street Journal and some of these newspaper readers, where you literally don't have to leave Facebook at all to have the entire feature of the site there. And what they're doing is saying, now I can see all the content you're consuming. I can make smarter decisions about what information I put towards you. And when Facebook does launch their search product, which they are working on, I mean, they just took a whole bunch of people from Google to do it, and they are hiring data miners like nobody's business, which means search product is coming. The question I have is, how does the market change once all this flood of data opens? So it hasn't opened yet, but it will open in the next 2 years. And when Google can now say, well, not only can you buy, optimize for the term, but you can optimize for a person's lifestyle or the person's past behavior, how does that change the entire way we look at this market? Because right now we're going for a keyword and we're going for a strength on it, but that may not be the model in 2 years. I think that the amount of data that it's about to be appended is substantial, and I think that brands aren't thinking enough about that. So I throw that out there as a very,
I think it's a nice segue into the whole aspect of kind of branding online and how that involves social, which was kind of picked up by a number of people, particularly with regards to kind of social CRM. I thought that was fascinating as well. So I mean, just to kind of as an opening gambit, and how do you, in this kind of multi-channel, multi-platform world, maintain any degree of consistency around your brand when you're trying to present the same face, the same messaging on Facebook, which is ever changing in its walled garden kind of way, Google, which is doing the same in a slightly more open way, but still very much defining its own space, and then with your own platforms and channels, which are defined by the platforms they're on, the Twitter, and effectively your website and blog, if you're using those mediums to their fullest. How do you manage to create some kind of consistent brand and then tie that into the customer service response as well? Does anyone think they're kind of coming close to that? I mean, Expedia, you guys must have a very active, I know you guys have got a very, very active presence in social as well. How's that affecting search?
Well, very, very active. I'm not sure.
Okay. It's funny, that we actually just kind of starting to think about it and to kind of trying to convince managing directors that there is something to be made in social media. Because basically, it's very difficult to actually see how social media can actually create or generate transactions to the site, which is very. I don't know. I know you probably agree on that. It's very difficult to convince people that there is clearly a benefits being in social media.
Yeah, we still don't see it as a transactional channel. We see more like a brand channel.
Brand management.
I think the interesting thing that I always hear, and maybe I'm, because I'm social, that I say this differently. I'm the awkward child. No, but I always hear brands say, well, we can't say 100% that transactionally it comes from it, but I look at myself and the decisions I make about brands, and if I feel I have a positive conversation, or if I'm looking for a hotel and somebody gives me information, I'm more likely to book with that hotel. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is I may not book through a Twitter link, but I'm going to probably book that hotel. Yeah. I can specifically think of a travel experience where I was coming over to actually the UK when I was investigating whether I wanted to join Greenlight, and I asked, where should I stay? And somebody recommended a place for me, and then the brand itself said, you can stay here. Did I book through that brand, like through a link that they sent me on Twitter? Because no, they didn't send me a link on Twitter, and I probably wouldn't have booked with that, but I listened to what a couple people said. They were the only brand that popped in, and I said, yeah, I'm going to stay there. And I did. Now, what would have been even more interesting is if in the future through CRM they could know that that's how I did it.
Yeah.
And then that changes maybe the way they check in. You check in, and I think customers want that acknowledgement that they recognize that they had a conversation with you prior. So if someone had said, when I checked in, and this is not something that probably could be done easily right now, but if you checked in the hotel, it was like, oh, you heard about us on Twitter, what other people say, then I'd be like, whoa, this brand really gets it. Now I will always stay here, because they obviously pay attention to me and they care that I'm not just a number in a book to them. And I think that's what corporations are trying to fight against with social, is the faceless corporation look. And the smaller companies actually have the advantage, because they are naturally less regulated.
Yeah, buttoned up and all. I mean, this is
yeah, sure. Chime in on that, because the irony of what you're saying is that the conversation that you had on Twitter and the reviews that were present for you to see and the conversations that are informing your brand perception are eminently detectable. And we do a tremendous amount of social media analysis and analysis of noise, analysis of sentiment, comments, and all sorts of things. Yet we're still trying to attribute to this Twitter link. And it's ironic that the people that have historically controlled the marketing budgets and have been sort of very, what's the word I'm looking for? In a very sort of tethered way, let out that budget to digital because it can be tracked, but have not let out all of that budget because they need it for TV and all the things which are so ironically not correlated on or measured on anything direct, but surveys in the street and other qualitative data that they use to provide correlations that, well, we spend X million on TV advertising and that therefore X million people heard about the brand and X people then perceived this about the brand, and then Y people then actually went and we detected an X% increase in sales. And that's how billions and billions of pounds and dollars are being committed to marketing for years. Then digital comes along and it's okay, digital can have a little bit of marketing budget because it's very, very detectable. Then social media comes along, it suddenly doesn't conform to that model, it conforms to the previous model, and the budget's not there. And I find that if we were to make a far greater effort in maybe mining social metrics and correlating them with sales data and working a lot harder on that, we'd be able to free up a lot more budget for social initiatives than, ironically, staying true to the digital accountability model of last click attributed analysis based on the click of a link or whatever is your poison.
Just to give you guys an example of where you may not want to set a link, because you always want to have things written about you and you want to be part of the conversation. But for example, I was robbed a week and a half ago, and it was pretty traumatic. And so I put on Twitter, I was robbed. I'm sorry I can't respond as often as you because I'm a little bit on Twitter all the time. And if you check out for 24 hours, people think you're dead. So I have to like literally put a notice up like, hey, if I'm not around as much, it's because I don't have a regular computer. Now, I was looking into alarm systems at that time for my house, as one logically would when they were, robbed. And I asked people who live in London, like, can anybody recommend an alarm system company that, would be right? Because I asked Twitter everything. So I'm talking to people about this, and some burglary company goes and sends me a message to try to sell me something, and it came off entirely wrong because I was looking for information, but I wasn't looking for someone to be like, saw you got burgled. Wouldn't have happened if you used our service link.
Wasn't the protection.
It wasn't the right situation.
Wait, we can make sure that that doesn't happen again.
But had somebody said, well, here's the situation with our systems. If you have any questions, let me know. Just wanted to offer it in case you had any questions. I probably would have checked them out and looked at them as a potential alarm system. But the fact of the matter is the type of content that often gets sent. Sorry, wrong words. But that often gets sent to people via Twitter is the wrong content. So someone says, I'm looking for a hotel in New York, and your brand sends, oh, you should stay in our hotel link, is not going to be what the customer wants. What they want is, from what I've seen on your thing, you're looking for this, this, and this. We have those things. Here's some images of them. Here's a little video tour. Let me know if you have any questions or you want information. That's what the customer wants. So we're in that time where what's being put out is not necessarily what the customer wants.
Apart from the numbers, I would say Twitter changed a bit way of this communication between company and client, because you can track, let's say, last 5 tweets, and there is like 2 tweets typical, like, okay, we have new product something, 140 letters, and then there is like, oh, Mike or Tom, thank you, that was really nice, or we happy to you, something really personal. And then again, I'm not saying that it's good or bad, and I'm not saying about numbers and how it convert, but this is something definitely different, because this personal message is not sent by personal channel, it's like really public. Everyone can see this, and I think more messages like that is making this corporate company, where people are thinking that this is something like, these people are from different story. It's making us and them more in personal relation.